Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Jeanette Camping from Henry Stewart Events and we're delighted you've joined us for the latest webinar for our Creative Ops community. We're pleased to have almost 200 professionals from around the world registered for today's Creative Ops Masterclass, integrating the three pillars of creative operations: excellence, briefs, budgets and resourcing. At the end of the presentation we'll take some questions, so please send them through via your GoToWebinar column. And we are recording the webinar and you'll all be sent the link to the recording tomorrow. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Fergus Ash from Screendragon, who you can also hear speaking at our forthcoming Creative Operations event in London. Thanks for joining us today, Fergus.
Oh, hi, Jeanette, and thank you for that introduction and welcome, everybody. So with me today, I've brought a colleague. You probably see him on the slide, and his name is Sean O'Connell. And myself and Sean will be taking you through a session today on the three pillars of creative operations: briefs, budgets, and resourcing. And our goal is to cover this territory in 30 minutes, because the purpose of today's session is really to show you how you can simplify this through integrating briefs, resourcing, and budgets to get your projects running more efficiently and achieve more productivity in your organization. For those of you who don't know anything about Screendragon, we are a vendor in this software category, serving the needs of agencies and creative ops in-house agencies, and we've been doing so for the last 15 years or so. You're seeing some of our clients on screen now. And what we'd like to share with you today is a solve for one of the biggest challenges we've been seeing in the market over the last number of years, and that is the fragmentation that exists in the tools that are used to basically get work from A to Z. So I imagine for many of you this will be sort of familiar landscape of briefs being produced in paper or being phoned through, project management in Excel sheets, resourcing done in either tools like Google Sheets or Hub Planner, and then getting the actuals written by your staff if you are time tracking in either via finance system or in via any other sort of time tracking tool. So our goal here today is to talk to you about how you can simplify this and remove the struggles that exist in your organization, basically by integrating things and making them simpler to achieve. Because often what we're hearing is working through these different apps, it takes too much time. And taking too much time means that people don't adopt the technology. There's often a lot of duplication. It gets overly complicated with different UXs, and it's invariably too slow. So our thought today was to show you an approach which will integrate a smart brief that can trigger resourcing and connect up to the budget, and then can ultimately connect into your resourcing and your time tracking. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Sean, because Sean has lots of experience in helping companies with all these different areas of creative ops. So over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Fergus. Hi, everyone. Good to talk to you. So what I'm going to look at here, and I'm going to look at three key areas as the webinar says: briefing, resourcing, and budgets as well. Starting with the briefing side of things, I suppose first I'm showing here, I think, from my experience of being in agencies, what we often see in terms of briefs, and that is they are in Word docs, they are in PDFs, they look something like this, and they can be captured in various different ways. And I think as part of that, some of the real challenges that we hear from agencies within these are around that these are hard to complete. There's a lot of information within these. There's no consistency in terms of the briefing that we're getting in. We're often missing key information from a creative point of view to be able to price out some work, to be able to deliver your creatives accurately in terms of the brief, that we have the full information needed. The whole area of actually reviewing and approving them, and that compliance can be quite hit and miss in terms of ensuring the right people see the briefs at the right time and are seeing the right ones that they needed. And the final part of this really is around reporting, and that your information is trapped in those Word documents, in conversations as well, and you've no way of tracking how this is coming back in terms of reporting for future working. So what I want to do is show, I suppose, very quickly some of these, and also bring to the table some of the stories that we have around agencies, these challenges, and how we go about, I suppose, sorting these challenges out. In terms of what I'm going to do is just show you this from a briefing form point of view, and actually how this can look and feel for an end user to make life as easy as possible. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you from two sides here. One is going to be actually filling out an intake request form, and also actually capturing key financial data around this as well. So some of the challenges that we face, as I kind of mentioned, is around ensuring that data itself is consistent. And this comes from having, very simply, your drop-downs, your check boxes, having information in the correct format. But on top of that, having that information very reactive in terms of, as I am answering certain questions, show me the right fields that I need to fill out, change the information that's in those drop-downs so it reflects based on the client, based on the brands, whatever information I'm giving you, react to, make the briefs react to that, so that I can give you more accurate information. Capture key dates that we need, and certainly for a lot of agencies, making certain information mandatory that comes through from a briefing point of view really just focuses the mind on the people filling out briefs and submitting them to ensure that you're getting the right data that you need first time on this. From a deliverable point of view, this really, here I'm going to show you around these summary of assets here, for example. This really comes into consistency of briefing across an organization. And one of the things we face and hear a lot from agencies is that, briefs are only as good as the people that fill them out. That's something that we're trying to take away, so that when you are selecting that you need certain types of deliverables, for example, that we're dynamically giving you the options that are available. And this could be client specific, it can be agency specific, to say, okay, because you want web copy only assets, here are your options. What is it that you want as part of this? Again, if I change my mind and say I want email and web assets instead, it's going to give me those options and very much give that consistency of briefing. This has proven massively popular across agencies to ensure that what's being captured is pretty consistent throughout the agency. On top of this, we talked a bit about compliance and ensuring that the information that is being filled out is being seen by the right people at the right time. So that can be reactionary based on information that I fill in. So as I pick my client, we may know the client lead automatically who it goes to. That client director will get an email. Also on top of that, if you're talking around products in particular, you could be answering questions that relate to finance, legal, regulatory, so that if there's claims on a piece of content, well then we automatically need to route in a regulatory team. If it's over a certain dollar amount, for example, in terms of a project, we need to route in finance. So not only is the brief capturing all the information you need to give you those really accurate reporting and KPIs, it's also affecting the process that you have and ensuring that that's all pretty consistent across the board.
Sean, one of the key learnings we had, or actually one of the biggest KPIs, was with a big CPG client of ours, and that was around, if you look at the dates there, for example, content push date or target activation or a due date, any due date in particular. Mm-hmm. A system that is able to inform the user when they're filling out the brief to say, this timeline is not achievable based on our SLAs. So maybe you want to bring up that slide to show that this is just one example of how technology can truly help, because it brings an element of intelligence to play. So you can see here, this is a screenshot of it, and it's an exaggerated case. But because the system knows what a typical project type duration is, it's able to inform the user to say, actually, you're asking us to do this project at a massively compressed timeline, and it could cost us extra time and money, or it's totally unfeasible. We are now asking you to edit the ship date here. Actually, if you click on the continue button there, it asks you to fill in a business case if it really needs to be done. But these are the things that you can't achieve in Excel sheets and you can't achieve in PDFs. But you can achieve with good tech because it obviously learns, and you can set those SLAs in the back so that your creative ops team at least can give guidelines to requesters.
And I think on that, Fergus, it's also I think just having a warning like that in front of users is gives them they think twice about rushing through projects. I think it affects behavior as much as anything else.
Yep. But I think what you're going to now take on is obviously a project involves resources, and resources cost money. So how can you integrate estimating with briefing if you're kicking off? And that may be a certain part of the workflow that a requester fills in the brief, but then it's for the creative ops or a different part of an agency to fill in what effort is required to deliver on this brief.
Yeah, absolutely. So giving this brief just a quick title and then looking to fill out effort levels on this. We see a lot of different ways here in terms of filling out effort levels. What I'm going to show you today is one of the more simpler ones. This across agencies can be by phase, by deliverables. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can build out these estimates. What I'm going to show right here and now is, I think, the most common, which is around, I need something like a business analyst, for example, and I'm going to give them, they need to work on this for 10 hours doing project prep, for example. I've also got, concepts that need to be done, and that's going to be done, for example, by, a senior designer within here. So you can come and you can see this is all pulling in my rates automatically. Again, based on this, some people can see the rates, some people can't. So you're going to have the ability in here to hide and show fields to people based on what you're doing. And then we've got a project, project manager on this as well. So we need to fill out our project management hours on this. So I'm just going to do very quick and simple projects from this point of view and say project managers are going to do an hour's work on this as well. So not giving them a huge amount of time. And you can see this is building up our estimate here. So 5,230, building up a very quick estimate for a project. Again, I can build this by deliverables. I can include my out-of-pocket expenses. All of that can be done as part of this. And I can then just submit this for approval within the system. So submit my request, and that will move on from here. Once that's submitted, as Fergus mentioned, this can go on its path, and all the information I filled out in terms of my briefing and also my estimate will go through the various steps. We'll always see who's in charge of the process, who's assigned to it at any point. But that's our briefing side of things, and where that brings us very, very quickly is to the budget side of it. Will bring you into your resourcing quite quickly. And what that does is that once that gets approved through its process, it'll create a project for me. And that project is doing a couple of things. So ensuring that all of that information that I filled out gets automatically populated into the project. I put some key dates with those, bring them in, and they're automatically assigned to the roles within here. Within Screendragon in particular, these roles are then directly linked to my resource planner as well. So it's a smooth transition from filling out that brief to building this project plan and to having my resourcing, which I'll show you as well in a moment. So this has created all of my line items around this. This will also come through to a core budget tab, which will say, okay, your budgeted cost here is coming through within here. And we still start to look at your rate card and ensure that all of this that's been assigned to the roles is coming through, and you're starting to look at your overall project progression. How this information is being populated is that this project prep, as we said, it's assigned directly to the role of business analyst, and the time allocation is within here. If I move to my core resourcing to show how this is all linked together, if I come within here, you can see that on my project, and this is the core resource planner. What you're looking at is the roles, and I'm just going to filter down to business analyst just to show you this quite clearly on the screen. So got my business analyst, and they're listed underneath it. Business development coming in through with that filter as well. And what's been assigned out on that cavity protection, it's here. So this is my project prep, and I can now look to assign this to anybody by simply dragging and dropping. So I'm looking for who's available within the system in terms of my business analysts. So again, if I just filter this down slightly, it'll go, okay, based on this, I can see Jan has got good availability. I want to give this to Jan. I can drag, drop, and assign. So this is showing that, and this is also because I actually moved the dates back a couple of days, or I could move forward at the same time and reassign it to next week. This is also linking back to that project plan. So that flow and what we're talking about here today, how the brief is powering the resourcing, and obviously within here, as I'm moving this, I'm also affecting back that project plan. If I was to update this and update the hours, for example, that will also correlate back with my budgets.
Sean, there's a question here about, could this be used for freelancers in the same way as staff here?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So in terms of the freelancers, we've done quite a lot of work around that in terms of even going back as far as onboarding them and offboarding them and ensuring their contracts are all correct. But within this, you'll have the ability to go and find your freelancers in terms of your filters to say, hey, I need to see my freelancers only within here and their capacity across the system. And when I talk about capacity within here, it's looking across the entire system to say, hey, in terms of availability, how busy is everybody? And if you bring that to, in particular in an agency, you're looking at a very high level, first and foremost, across the entire roles to say, okay, over the next couple of weeks, how busy are we? Where are the bottlenecks coming up? And to your point, actually, Fergus, around freelancers, this is where it starts, because this is where it identifies where you need freelancers, where are we overstretched in terms of resourcing and need to bring people in. Those freelancers will be populated in the resource planner, the same as anybody else. You can look at their capacity, and obviously that's relevant in terms of when they're coming on, being available, and obviously dropping off again as well.
Okay, that answers it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Coming back to the project itself, as I just mentioned there, and we're kind of looking very quickly at kind of, this is a financial overview of it. This obviously can come back and say, hey, I need more information about my projects. But within any of these projects, that whole, I suppose, resourcing point of view, so I can resource from within my project as well, my tasks, that interlinks. So what we've kind of done here very quickly is just create your brief, approve it through to your project, and bring that through to your core resourcing. We kind of aimed obviously to do this relatively quick on this webinar as well, across the board. So as I add any new tasks to this, that's also going to populate my resource planner and also update my budget as well.
So, Sean, to sort of take people through the process again, looking at the top. So you started with a request up on the top, and you could have different requests on the top. You fill in a request, and it can be from somebody outside the creative organization on a business line. It goes into the creative organization. They produce an estimate. It can then go to finance for approval, and on approval, it will create what we're now looking at. Is that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely.
And any changes thereafter, does it hold the original budget? Does it save the baseline of the budget?
Yeah, that's always saved within the system, and I think from that point, what you're looking at is that in terms of this original budget, and now that we're starting to resource against it, and we're breaking your resourcing figure down by up to today, future spend, and then pulling, future tense, pulling timesheets in against this as well. It's giving you that holistic figure in terms of, is my project running under or over budget? But that core estimate that was approved, that remains as a baseline.
Okay, there's another question in from somebody about how does adding a new task affect the end date? I think what we're getting to there is connecting up dependencies on tasks, and whether if you add a new one in and link it start to finish or whatever, will it push out?
It will, absolutely. So your project dependencies, your Gantt charts, and that's all dependencies, finish to start, start to finish, etc. All of them, they're all there and available. So if your tasks are all linked together, if you move one, it will move the remainder of the tasks. But bear in mind that's also moving your resourcing plan as well. So it's all being done in one job for you, nice and neatly. So it's not fragmented from each other in terms of resourcing and the task list. Their link can remain, so dependencies will kick in on both.
Okay, great. One thing, Sean, it's a question, and you may not be able to cover it here, is let's say you're planning up front. Are you able to use this in sort of a staff planning way that, okay, we know we've got 50 programs to do for quarter one and quarter two, that you're able to preload the resourcing to look at capacity and then hold them in a queue, a sort of a pipeline queue, and then kick them off as necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to, I suppose, that resource planner, we have that ability to have what you call pipeline projects, and that terminology can change from agency to agency, and we can change with it. That is, in retainer clients in particular, it's quite common that you will at the start of the year look to plan out your major campaigns for the year, the effort levels involved in those. If we're planning for 9 months' time, we do want to know capacity wise, are we going to be okay to fulfill all of these retained jobs that we have across the agency? This functionality to bring in your pipeline projects, and I can even pick and choose between them. It's not a case of an all or nothing. I can come in here and say, hey, there's 4 or 5 that are likely to drop. So this is down to almost opportunity management as well as retainer. I think these are going to drop. If they do we have the capacity to deal with them? So they all remain in a pipeline state. That allows project managers in particular to go in, plan out their people, even so we can move from that role level resourcing to people, but it's not going to show up on people's dashboards straight away until you move that to live. It'll all remain hidden to those that you assign to your pipeline projects to be able to see that.
Obviously, somebody's spotting something on screen here. They're asking about how do you manage holidays?
Oh, yeah, down the bottom here. So I'll take 2 different sides of holidays actually. So one is let's talk about public holidays. So that's we have an admin tool here around plugging in those dates. So whether that's Christmas, 4th of July, whatever it may be, you can build up those holiday cards and assign them to different groups. A lot of our systems are global, so you would have different holidays being applied to, obviously US, Canada, here within the UK, different holidays for different groups. So that will automatically pull into your resource planner then, and ensure your dependencies, those are taking them into account as well. The second is maybe more around vacation, PTO, and any other kind of, I suppose, non-project related bookings as well. And they're completely configurable. Different agencies will have different ones to track within here. These can all be tracked within there. Couple of ways in which we've done it. We've built approval processes so people can get their annual leave actually approved within Screendragon. Others, we've imported the data from HR systems to sync it up with Screendragon as well.
Okay, I got one other one here, and must be a real specialist in the trade here. It's about people changing roles. So you took out business analyst, and Bob Mulhern there is a business analyst.
Yeah.
What if they change roles? How do you handle that? Because the budget, they've changed role, and things will change.
A fantastic question. I think we need another hour probably to get into that fully, but the short answer is when someone changes a role from a very top level, we will decide you get an option in terms of what you want to do with their bookings. So everything, once they move to the new role, one of three scenarios will generally happen. One is it goes back to the role to be reassigned. So Bob is getting a promotion, so he's moving to senior business analyst. Everything that's been booked with Bob is going to go back to business analyst role to be redivvied. That's number one. Number two is that it stays with Bob, but it goes on to his new rate. So basically, he's going to do the work, but actually he's at a higher rate at that point. The third is that Bob has a direct replacement, and we want to be able to reassign to that person. If we really got into the weeds on this, we have the ability at any of these bookings that you see within a project. I have the ability. Catherine, for example, is a business analyst, but actually this particular booking, I need her to act up and act down, and actually take a different role and actually build this at a different rate. So a really specialist question, definitely, but we have the ability to really mix and match it at a very high project level, or if you want to get down into particular roles and bookings, we can bring it down to that granular level as well. Generally, one of the first three options I said will take care of it for the most part.
Sean, we said we do it in 30 minutes, so we got 2 minutes left. Do you want to return to the slide where we just had the overview of apps and the sort of the landscape, and just talk to any other learnings or advice that you have, irrespective of technology or whatever involved? You're doing this a lot, so maybe you can maybe give a final tip. Well, there is one more question just come in, but maybe you can give a tip and then I'll pose the final question here.
Sure. I think certainly in terms of day-to-day, I think what I hear from the most part is that, the information we have is, and Excel seems to be one of the favorites. It's I suppose not to be overly afraid of the change, because the information in terms of getting it into a system like Screendragon is as easy. The finance side of things is generally the one, and what you saw here from having estimates, resourcing, and actual in one system is something that you don't see very often. The ability to actually get that into one system, so to be able to just ingest data, have that core system is vital. If everything continues to live in those silos, the amount of time that I've seen people, they've told me, the amount of time they spend pulling Excel sheets, pulling hot sheets together, they seem to be doing more of that work than actual, I suppose, client-facing productive work. So I think really in terms of when we go and kind of sit down with a client, our key thing is to look at how can we reduce the amount of systems and the amount of sources of data as much as possible. So that's where the electronic briefing comes in, the digital briefs come in, your project management, capturing the resource data, and then finally your finance coming in as well.
And what's final one? What's your experience with finance in terms of timesheeted data in SAP PeopleSoft? Is it complicated to extract it to make it work with another tool?
It actually comes out to 4 key pieces of information, and that might sound like it's oversimplifying it, but in effect, for any timesheet, we need to know what's the project number or activity number you're putting this against, who's the person, how many hours did they do, and on what date. Once we have those 4 pieces of information, whether that is we're pulling the information in from a finance system or pushing out to it, you started that as your base, and it's relatively straightforward to do from there.
Okay, we're just over. We said doing 30 minutes. I'll answer these directly. 2 final questions. Can you upload files to the tool, and is there proofing? Yes. We weren't going to cover any content workflows in this demo. Focus on the briefs, the resourcing, and the budgeting. Can you invoice from this tool? No, not directly. It's not a general ledger or anything like that. So you can create PDFs of those estimates that you make, and you could adjust that for it to become an invoice, but it wasn't designed to be an invoicing system, not as yet anyway. But if there's any final questions, send them now. Otherwise, we hope you enjoyed our hopefully short but impactful overview of briefings, budgets, and resourcing. This is our experience that we were sharing and our approach in terms of technology. Maybe perfect for you, maybe not. Your organization may be set up in a different way, but we hope you got something from this session. Okay, thank you very much for your time today. And Sean, thanks for answering all the questions.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Fergus and Sean. That was wonderful. Screendragon are also sponsoring our annual Creative Ops event, Creative Operations London, which is taking place on March the 5th. Fergus will be speaking with Adrian Burton from the Super Union, and you can find all the details on our website. We hope to see you there. Thanks again. Goodbye.
Thanks, Jeanette. Bye.